welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing an art time lapse based on the idea of a terrarium. I hope I said that right. I actually had to Google it to make sure I got the terminology right. For those of you who are not aware what it is essentially an aquarium but for plants instead of like fish. It's usually made out of it's glass container. It's like a miniature garden or forest enclosed. It's kind of like its own little world. So I thought it would be really cool and so much fun to do a piece based on that particular idea. And as a comfort piece for myself and just taking it easy on my artist journey right now, I'm gonna do it on one of my childhood favorite cartoons or anime, which is Studio Ghibli's Totoro. So I started this piece using acrylic wash, just doing a very light diluted layer of kind of like an aquamarine, and just did a wash on the 7" by 7" block of Stonehenge hot press paper. After it dried, I added on the white to kind of mark where I imagined the glass container would be. Once that dries, I add on the next layer of where I want the plants to be approximately. So at this point, I'm still pretty rough in terms of where I want the plants to be located. Not too stressed about the whole process because I find that plants are pretty organic and it's fun to kind of play around the colors and the water and see where it washes up. I like these kind of no pressure pieces because I can just enjoy the process and not necessarily put so much pressure on myself. Nowadays, I think for a lot of artists, there's a lot of push for us to produce products, especially with social media, but it's really unreasonable to expect artists to produce beautiful artwork on a daily basis, and it's just a lot of pressure and anxiety. So here I'm just trying to slow things down and enjoy the process and go back to something I'm familiar with. Part of the trick to working with gouache is that you really have to wait for the previous layer to dry before adding on the next layer, or else you end up having a really muddy layer. To be honest, I don't think I'm the most patient person, so you can tell even from the leaves of the plant that I've painted in here, the gouache on the bottom for the white hasn't exactly dried, and you can see that from the buckling of the paper. So it's actually bleeding out a little bit. However, I'm not too worried or fuss about it because I know I can correct it once it dries up, which is one of the beauties with working with acrylic wash, because once it dries you can just add on another layer, kind of like acrylics, and because they're very opaque and you can color over it. Here I want an asymmetrical glass jar on purpose, just to give it a little bit of character and also have fun with it. I'm using a variety of different types of green, like a moss green, also like a forest green, just to give the plants a bit of a dimension rather than a 2D look of flat colors. At the same time, I'm adding on more detail as I add on next layer of colors. And that's one of the most satisfying part of painting with acrylic wash or with any form of artwork. Just watching that piece of artwork that you work on like a baby that you spend time with, watch them grow and like kind of flourish in its own medium, which is the paper. I decided to add a small shadow for this glass container. To be honest, I'm not very good with growing plants. So a lot of times I like to paint plants, that way if I frame them and put them up, I can feel like there's a lot of nature and little pots of plants around my house, even though they're all just illustrations and paintings of my own. I feel like it adds greenery and makes the room a little bit more pleasant and relaxing. But unfortunately, I am no plant mama and I have very poor plant skills. Somehow almost everything I have dies. I remember having a cactus that I absolutely love after begging my parents to buy me a cactus. and I spent so much time touching it that it died ultimately. That's right, I killed my cactus. Can you believe it? I think I was around maybe 10 years old then. I was told that cactuses are low maintenance, but I guess I was too touchy-feely for my cactus liking. Anyways, back to this particular piece of artwork. I thought that the plants being in the glass container may look a little plain without a little bit of pop of color, so I decided to do some dangling flowers to hang on top. Here I'm just refilling on some darker greens, as I will probably show you in the next step, is that I usually go from light to dark back to light. So you saw the really diluted layer that I add on the bottom, and as I add in more detail, I add on a darker color, and then at the very end I add a little bit more highlights. So there you go, you can see I'm adding in some leaves there. Guys, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider like, subscribe, and sharing this channel. It really does help. If you would like to see more of my artwork and my art time lapse, or just me ranting about my experience, feel free to hit that bell button so you can be notified every time I have a new video. I try my best to produce a video every week, although it is quite difficult with 2 kids, but I enjoyed this so much, so I hope I can continue to make time for it. Just to speed things up for you guys, because I know that this painting process is getting a little bit slower, but just want to show you that step by step how long it actually takes me. But it's also satisfying watching in our time lapse and seeing how fast the work comes into being. Here I took a little break and I used oil pencils to fill in some of the details, using a little bit of, you can see, sky blue and greens. The type of oil pencil I'm using here is the Faber-Castell that's made in Germany. I really love them. They are so oily and creamy, and the color just kind of glide on, and there are so many variety of colors to pick up from. And then to blend the colors in, I usually use a Prismacolor Premier brand to blend in the oil pencils. I usually really enjoy doing these types of sketches and adding on the gradient with oil pencils on top of gouache, especially doing it at a coffee shop, which is difficult to do nowadays with the pandemic. I hope to have the opportunity to do that and just illustrate in public. I really enjoy interacting in public. But nowadays I'm trying my best to keep to myself to protect people around me, including my children. So trying to be a good mama as best I can. Okay, here I am doing the doodling for adding in darker on the edges. I think this piece is turning out quite nicely. Pretty excited about how this is coming along. There are a lot of steps to doing illustration like this, and I think I enjoy sharing these art time lapse so that you guys can see the work that goes into it. A lot of times on social media or other, such as Instagram, I put my artwork out there and people usually say good job, or like they like, or like sometimes people just kind of browse through it, and little do they know like the amount of time and effort it's put into producing a piece like this, especially for content creators. Like, it helps a lot to have people interact with that piece of work to broaden its audience, because like it takes so much work to produce that one picture that you will probably just swipe through. It's really sad now that I think about it, but that kind of adds to the pressure nowadays for a lot of artists to produce work on a regular basis. My maternity leave is coming to an end, and I'm afraid I won't be able to devote as much time into my artwork. This can be a good or bad thing in that I will be spending more time on my children and more time at work and doing something different, hopefully get more inspiration. But it is sad not having as much time as I have in the last few years, especially having my children back to back almost. With a white jelly roll Sakura pen right now, I'm adding on details for some of the cactuses. I find that the background was still a little sparse and not complete, so I added a bit more white to kind of blend in the background. For areas of the container that I find is just still a little bit on the darker side, I add a little bit of white in certain areas to create translucency. And of course, now that I wrap up this terrarium, I'm going to add in the little character that I mentioned about in the beginning, which is Totoro. I think he'll just sit on this little hill, maybe plant hill or cactus. I'm not sure, haven't really decided yet. But I use white to color in his belly and then darker colors just to shade in where he will be approximately. And as always, I've decided to add a little Totoro on his side so that he's not too bored by himself in this terrarium. I really like the idea of this miniature world in a glass container and him just enjoying himself in pure bliss, just zoning out. And you know what? Nowadays, everybody deserves a little bit of time zoning out. There's so much happening in the world, so much information, and so much just pressure to do better and like move on to the next step that I think sometimes we don't get the opportunity to slow down and just enjoy what we have and be happy. So here I have him sitting down, adding on a little plant that he'll be holding and just watching it blow in the wind, the invisible wind that's inside this container. Can't help but correct myself. But yeah, just adding in the little details here. I think I'm almost finished this piece. I just need to add in the eyes for where Totoro's eyes will be. I decided to use also a Sakura Jelly Roll pen to fill in the white area so I have more control than the acrylic wash itself. Thank you so much for following along this art time-lapse experience. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this type of artwork, I'd love to hear comment below if you want me to do another maybe terrarium with another Studio Ghibli character. Let me know because it was so fun to do and it looks so cute. I can imagine having a full set of these plants framed in our kitchen or maybe in our bathroom or even in our hallways. I think they will look so lovely. So that's it for now. I hope you guys are doing well and I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.